guys, we're off to our next adventure. Montezuma Castle, here we come. Okay, so Google Maps did not take us right to the castle. So we're gonna continue on this road.
Hey guys, here we are at the visitor center. Let's go check out the visitor castle.
Montezuma's Castle. And we may be able to use my disability pass here. So, alright guys, let's go find this castle. Alright, so this says timeless beauty. It says Montezuma's Castle invites us to pause and wonder at the ingenuity of people who began building it over 700 years ago. Ancestors of today, Puebloan peoples, built and occupied the castle. We can only speculate why they chose to build here and how they lived in this magnificent cliff dwelling. Both Montezuma and Castle are misnomers. In the 1800s, European Americans were fascinated with Inca, Maya, and Aztec civilizations and gave southwestern sites exotic names, in this case for the Emperor Montezuma, who lived long after the castle was constructed. Wow, so it says the Yavapai call this place, it means the home of the protectors of the Yavapai. The Hopi refer to it as both Sakaitaka, place where the step ladders are going up, high walls. Due to looting by the early 1900s, much of what was the castle's residence left behind was gone. Damage to the building increased as visitors climbed ladders to walk through the rooms. Now the dwellings is only access for inspection, maintenance, and research. Please stay on the trail and leave whatever you find for others to enjoy. Sorry about my horrible pronunciation of everything on here. I'm not familiar with this. But we hope you guys enjoy our adventures. Okay guys, there it is.
And there's a cave, and it goes back 37 feet.
Okay.
Okay, and so that's the deepest part that it goes. There's a lot of water in this valley, and so consequently food. And 500 years ago, there were approximately 10,000 Native Americans living here.
Wow.
So they lived every place you could live.
So as we're looking into the wall of the mountain, there's little, they look like little windows or what have you. So is there an actual pathway to get up there, or did they use ladders and rope?
And they made the ladders out of the tree with the white bark. We don't believe these trees were here because it's too valuable farmland.
Oh, okay.
However, that's the strongest local wood.
I
It's
see.
called Arizona sycamore.
Okay.
And they made ladders out of that, and we found the remains of the ladders.
Wow.
So you
Are those up for display anywhere inside?
Not that I know of. Possibly the Verde Valley Archaeological Center might have some about 2 miles from here.
Okay.
They have a repository of 100,000 items.
Okay, so here's one of the little markers. It says, creating a home. To construct their cliff homes, residents made use of naturally eroded alcove and fit 20 rooms into the shape of its contours. Why build a home in a cliff face? There are many possibilities: proximity to water and farmland, to stay above floods or for protection, the view or the southern exposure that afforded winter, solar heat, and summer shade. A ready-made shelter also meant fewer walls and roofs to construct for housing, storage, workspace, customs, and rituals. To organize and partition the alcove space, builders created walls with river cobbles and limestone held together with mud mortar. Mud plaster covered and sealed the walls for roof, beams, and floors between the multi-storied rooms. They mostly used local sycamore along with some alder and ash, but also carried in fir and pine from a distance. The original roof beams protruding from the wall to the right of the tower and the large beam ending in the wall above the tower provided a sense of scale. The castle is not as high up or as large as it might appear. It says each group living in the castle likely had their own room with roughly 140 square feet, 13 square meters, or about 17.5 feet by 8 feet on average. Ceilings were about 5 feet. Peepholes and doorways provided light in the morning and early afternoon, but rooms were dark in the late afternoon and evening. Women and children likely did the plastering, including annual patching of exterior walls that eroded easily. Their handprints are still visible in the plaster today. Wow. Aloft but not alone. Water, shelter, building materials, arable land, and other environmental conditions made Verde Valley an ideal place to live. Montezuma's Castle is the most obvious structure here, but it was a part of a larger community that included rooms here and a castle, and in Castle A to your left. The loose stones at the top of the small hill in front of you are the remains of 8 to 10 Pueblo rooms. Because of the bountiful resources scattered, small farming villages developed from roughly 600 to 1,100, followed by larger settlements like the Castle Complex. By 1200, communities extended all along the Verde River and its tributaries, which had floodplains for cultivating crops. These drainages were also travel corridors connecting perhaps 6,000 people in the valley to large populations to the northeast and south. In choosing where to live, people used the natural landscape to their advantage and built a variety of dwellings. In earlier times, pit houses and semi-subterranean homes were common. Later, small alcoves like those at Montezuma were walled off for dwellings and storage. Mesas and hilltops provided space for large pueblos like Tuzigut, and farmers built informal structures near their fields for shelter during planting harvests. So it says around 1300, the Verde Valley had at least 40 large villages, related dwellings, and farmlands, forming a complex settlement network. Much of this record of human activity is now lost to land development, erosion, and major flood events. The rebuilt pueblo at Tuzigut National Monument above and the dwellings at Montezuma's Well Right were in use at the same time as the castle. All were part of Verde Valley's network of settlements around 1300. Okay, here's another post. It says, alcoves and cavettes. The abundant alcoves and rock shelters found in this cliff throughout the Verde Valley served as homes, storage units, spiritual sites. Wind and water have sculpted countless alcoves, holes, and crannies in soft layers of the Verde Formation limestone. People built homes in large alcoves and used smaller recesses for temporary shelter and storage. When people dug into the cliff and enlarged or modified the opening, they created what archaeologists call cavettes. In rock shelters and cavettes, a masonry front wall enclosed living and storage spaces and niches off the front room. The floor was comprised of plaster on the top of compacted earth or bedrock, which often had ridges to divide interior space, though some may have had wood and mud walls. So right here it shows ladders and ways that they got up. Most cavettes are similar to one another, extending about 10 feet into the cliff. Some contain both local and imported pottery sherds dating from 1150 to 1400. During the winter, you can see one from here, about halfway up the cliff, downstream from Castle A. Look closely for a masonry wall with a doorway. So they're saying right here, maybe this, in this cave. So I think I saw it. I'll have to look again. People living in these cavettes must have shared a connection to one another and been yet another part of the Montezuma Castle neighborhood. For your safety and their protection, all cavettes are now closed to entry. A survey of nearby cavette revealed the site was reused in more modern times. Archaeologists recovered a Yavapai or Western Apache basket and items left behind by early visitors and soldiers from nearby Fort Verde. You can see the holes in there. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to go in, but if you look up here, you can see that cave and the entry right there and there and there. Okay guys, here's another little information thing. It says Lifeline. Beaver Creek has always been a major focus of life in the Verde Valley. Prehistoric Sinagua farmers constructed Montezuma Castle and other structures near the creek. They dug ditches to carry creek water to irrigate the fields of corn, beans, squash, and cotton that they cultivated on flat patches of creek bottom land. They also hunted animals attracted by the creek and gathered creekside plants. Ever sensitive to the moods of Beaver Creek because their lives literally depended on it, the Sinagua watched their lifeline change within the seasons, sometimes seemingly in the blink of an eye. The gentle, clear meander grew into a raging, muddy torrent, leaving debris stranded high in creekside trees. And there's Beaver Creek. Okay, so here's another little information center, and it says growing a livelihood. While many details of life in this settlement will never be fully known, it is clear that farming, craft, and trade thrived here. The space where you have been walking was a small part of the farmland cultivated by people of Montezuma Castle. Crops provided more than food. The economy of the castle community may have been based largely on a trade and craft specialization, including cotton weaving. Textiles were important for everyday use, trade, and ceremonies, so the demand for cotton was high. People also transplanted and cultivated agave to provide fibers for making strong twine used in ropes, nets, cords, bags, and sandals. Roasted agave hearts made a sweet food with calories equal to corn. Archaeological sites in the valley yield abundant fiber, cordage, and numerous stone knives for harvesting and processing agave. The plant is still important to the Avapi and the Apache cultures and is celebrated in modern agave harvests and roasts. So here's some of the examples that they're showing. Shoes.
One shoe.
Well, that looks like maybe a
Rope.
Rope, but yeah, shoes, little sandals maybe.
And
It says, though the castle is most visible, this site is actually home to a large group of dwellings, including a Castle A and numerous cavettes and alcoves, like those visible at the left of this photograph. Archaeological excavation revealed shoes of agave fibers and leather at the site, which were created by the castle's prehistoric occupants. And there's the castle again.
okay, guys, we're gonna listen to an audience that lets us hear about the castle and the thundering sounds or drumming sounds. I think it's coming from the castle up there with the somebody's in it.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
2, 1.
Imagine yourself visiting here over 7 centuries ago and receiving an invitation into this cliff-dwelling home. What you would have seen might well have been something like this cutaway model of Montezuma Castle. On the top floor, the elderly village lookout keeps his solitary vigil. His eyes search for approaching danger to those working the fields below the castle. It seems that over the ages, children and their actions change very little. On the fourth floor, you'll find a concerned mother scurrying to reach her adventuresome son, precariously balanced on the edge of the roof. On the third floor, an aging man leads his blind wife across the balcony. You'll also meet women busily preparing food, getting supplies from storerooms, making pottery and grinding corn. Usually women ground the corn, their staple food, only in small as-needed quantities and prepared it in various ways. Weavers used the second floor loom to weave cotton breechcloths, bags, and blankets. Today, you can see examples of their varied weaving patterns in the visitor center. Villagers used the wooden ladders as stairways to carry up provisions from fields and water from Beaver Creek. On the ledge at the base of the central tower-like section, a man prepares to start a fire using a friction drill. Nearby, a young woman awaits the returning hunters who bring wild game as variety to the village diet. We encourage you to think beyond ancient stone walls and vacant rooms to the remains of a once vibrant village, a village of people who experienced wants and needs, anxieties and fears, joys and sorrows, just as you and I today.
Oh my gosh, guys, we got caught in a huge rainstorm while we were out here. Life in the Verde Valley. So this is inside the shop. We kind of got a thunderstorm, rainstorm, so we ran in here quicker than we had to. So we talked to one of the rangers, Lester, and he said that visiting this Montezuma's well was worth it. He says it's actually a cenote. So it says half filled with spring water. This limestone depression or sink is uncommon due to its symmetry and size. The peoples called Hohokam and Sinagua built dwellings around it and along its edge. From the well outlet, they dug irrigation ditches to divert water in their fields. The site is important to several tribes of today, including many Hopi clans who trace their ancestors to these settlements. Today it is administered as a unit of Montezuma Castle National Monument. Montezuma's well. Okay, it says, enter the people, the human journey leading to the Sinagua and their departure from the Verde Valley can be traced for 14,000 years. So here it goes, early nomads, villages trading.
So the Indians built their...
It shows here.
The Indians built their house here in the wall.
There's, for the Roman Empire, world events, Notre Dame, mysterious life. They came, they looked, they left. So in 1583, Antonio de Espejo was the first European to come upon the silent, empty Pueblo villages. Captain Marco Farfan explored the Verde Valley in search of riches, but decided that copper mining was too labor-intensive. Governor Oñate passed through the valley on his way to Mexico. No European would enter the valley for another 221 years. So this is what they're saying. The world begins a major change. Michelangelo paints the Sistine Chapel ceiling, and Columbus lands in the West Indies. So there was definitely a lot that happened. Army settlers.
Mom, was the TV in the castle?
No, baby, they didn't have TVs in the castle.
Mommy,
Yeah. So here's, no, Ezra. Life was a lot simpler back then. They didn't need all of that stuff. They handmade crafts and their jewelry and tools, arrows, bone.
Whoa, so is this all the stuff?
Here's an example of maybe of one of the rooms, I think. It's pretty incredible. So this is an example of what they found, I believe, in the actual castle. And some of the pottery.
I wish we could go in the castle.
See, the early, they used to kill the animals.
Okay, guys, I hope you like our adventure. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more videos. Bye!